Okay, so thank you everybody for joining me on a Saturday. What's a Saturday morning for most of you guys. Um, Today we're going to look at some of the free media planning tools that you can use to help you plan out advertising campaigns, and then a little bit about how maybe AdBeat can be used with these tools, or how I would go back and forth between the tools. I sat down last night to try to put together some sort of PowerPoint presentation on this kind of stuff, but really I finally came down to the best way to do this is to just kind of dive in and get into the tools, and sort of as we go along, you guys can ask questions and I'll show you how I would use the tools. So I did come up with a couple examples, and so I'm going to start with these, and we may have time if somebody else wants to give me an example, we may be able to look at that as well. I'm going to start with FreeScore. Actually, it's a credit offer, and the reason I'm going to start with it is because it's kind of a cool example of some of the data that you can get out of AdBeat that's really useful. And I'm not in this market. I've never I've played around a little bit a couple years back and tried to advertise one of these credit offers on the Google Content Network, but I never really gave it a good shot. But anyway, I don't really know a lot about this market, and I was at LeadsCon a few days ago, and somebody came up and asked me to demo the software with this offer. And one of the things that I saw immediately when I checked out the top publishers that we have listed was something really interesting here. So when I go here to the top publishers, these top two sites right here are sites about the lottery, some sort of lottery. Then there's some other sites in here that are kind of news sites and credit related sites. Then another site about the lottery again. And anytime I see something like this that just seems a little bit strange, usually this is an indication that these sites are converting well for this offer. And there's a reason why they're showing up here as some of the most popular sites for this offer to be on. So I don't really know why that is. I don't know if it's that people that play the lottery more are more likely to have credit problems, and so they're more likely to respond to an ad about a credit offer, or what exactly it is. But anytime you see something like this that's kind of a little bit different, that's something you wouldn't expect, it's definitely good to kind of investigate that and try to use that data to help you, construct a campaign around it. So anyway, let's jump in here, and we're kind of going to use some of this data as if you were, searching in AdBeat. You found this, and you found some interesting publisher data, and how would you go about maybe expanding on that using some of these free tools? So Google's Ad Planner and Quantcast both. The purpose of these tools is going to be essentially to help you plan out placements or sites that you may want to buy traffic on. This is probably going to be most applicable to advertising on the Google Content Network, or doing direct site buys, because a lot of the other networks, you may not be able to choose the sites exactly that you want to be advertising on from the beginning. But let's get in here, and I'm going to show you how to use this tool. So let's see here. There's two tabs. The first is a research tab. The other one is a media plan. Actually, I guess there's three here, but really all I ever use is research and media plan. Research is where you're going to basically define your audience, and Google Ad Planner is going to give you data about your audience. So the first thing we could do here is just put in FreeScore, put in the offer, and this is going to categorize it here, and then provide you some data on, statistics, traffic statistics, a breakdown of demographic data. So this actually, this probably, to me, this probably is starting to make a little bit more sense. It's saying for this particular offer, it's skewed towards this income range. And if you're not familiar with the term skewed, it means basically it means that this looks like it's higher than normal, I would think. And actually, that's a good point. One of the things I don't like about Google Ad Planner is that they don't give you the normal percentages for all of this data. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. If I go to Quantcast, and I put in the same offer, the data here with Quantcast, what they're showing you is that in this lower income bracket, they're giving it an index of 118, which means if basically the general population of all internet users is going to have the index would be 100 for each of these categories, meaning that that's kind of like the way that the natural population is split up in terms of their income. Doesn't mean that they're all like equal number of people in this bracket and this bracket and this bracket. It just means that's an index, and they've normalized it, which is a word that just means they've made all of the standard measures equal to 100. And then whenever something is more or less, you can see that easily by how it's related to 100. So here it's easy to see that this is skewed higher in this lower income bracket to 118. With Google, it kind of looks that way, but it's hard for you to know what the true percentages are normally of just the broader internet population. So that's kind of one difference. It's actually, I like Quantcast a little better because of that. So basically, so far I'm just looking at this and looking at the age ranges and looking at the income. These are going to give you sites that are similar, sites also visited, and they have an affinity rating, which is something Quantcast also does. And this means when you see a multiplier here, 140 or 130, this means that somebody that visits freescore.com is 140 times more likely to visit freeonlinescore.com than a normal internet visitor who hasn't visited freescore.com. So it means that these sites are highly related. You'll see some interesting things in here. You'll see landing pages sometimes, or ad networks that have a high affinity for a particular offer, and that's just because traffic is going to that offer through a particular ad network tracking server or through a particular landing page. Okay, so right now I'm just kind of looking at this offer and I'm trying to understand what's going on with that, with those lottery sites specifically. So it looks like lower income demographic is mostly what I get out of that. And what was one of those sites? USA Mega, USLotteries.com. So I'm going to put one of those sites in here. And see if it matches up well or not. All right, so I'm not seeing a huge anything that really tells me that that site matches well on demographics specifically. So I don't really know what's going on with the whole lottery connection, but demographic targeting is actually kind of one of the weakest ways to target an offer. And so it may just be that this really doesn't have anything to do with demographics, but it may have more to do with some sort of a mindset, some sort of a mindset that causes people that are playing the lottery a lot and visiting these lottery sites. Maybe they have. I don't really know. I'm just sort of speculating here. Maybe they have some sort of higher, or they like to take risks or something, and that causes them credit problems, or something along those lines that may not have anything to do with demographics at all. So I don't really see a connection there with demographics. But if you've seen data like that in AdBeat, you're going to want to test and see if you have an offer that's similar, you're promoting that same offer, you're going to want to test and see if you're going to get good conversions from sites that are related. And so I'll show you how to do that in Ad Planner. You can use this search by audience, and there's a bunch of ways here to define an audience. First, I would start with always United States if that's what you're targeting. So make sure this isn't set on something else because it'll change the results. It should be defaulted to English. All right, and so this is the most common way that I use this. I type in sites. You can do one site, or you can do multiple sites at a time, and that's just going to kind of lump all of the characteristics of those sites together and give you data that's associated with all the sites. So I'm going to take two of those sites that were, you could take all three. I just don't want to go back and copy it over. I forget what the site name was. And when you hit OK, you'll see these tags come down here, and this means that this data below is now being determined by all of these tags. So the United States tag was already here, and now these two sites are here. And so all of the data here, Google is now giving you in relation to all of these tags. There's other ways to target, but for now, I'm just going to show you by basically getting similar sites, which is typically how I would use this. Okay, so down here in filters, there's a couple other things. You can do show domains, subdomains, accept advertising. I'm always going to leave these two just like this because you're interested in sites that accept advertising. Well, most of the time you are. If I know there's a lot of people on here that do PPV. If you're doing PPV, it doesn't matter if the site accepts advertising or not because you're just going to pop an ad over the site. So in that case, you may not care if it accepts advertising. All right, so I'm always going to rank by composition index rather than audience reach. So audience reach is, I'll show you what that looks like so you can understand why you don't want to use audience reach. All right, so what this is saying now, this data is sorted by audience reach, and this is telling you that well, here it's sorted by this column, audience reach. So this is telling you that the largest percentage of a particular site's audience that relates to the characteristics that we defined up here is in fact one of those sites, which makes sense. But then the next one is Facebook.com. And the reason why Facebook and the reason why Yahoo and YouTube and Amazon and all these giant sites are here is because all this is saying is basically that out of the, hundreds of millions of people that visit these sites, there's a bunch of people that are related to the people that visit these sites, okay, these lottery sites. But that doesn't really, that doesn't really help you out. I mean, because the only reason why that is that these sites are gigantic, and of course they're going to have a ton of people that are into lotteries, and they're also going to have a ton of people that are into cats, and a ton of people that are into religion or whatever. They just have a ton of people is the bottom line. So this isn't really what you want to do. You don't want to look at reach because it's not a good way to target. Now, as a side note, something like this on Facebook, I mean, of course, on Facebook you could probably target these people somehow with keyword targeting or whatever. So maybe that would be a good idea to go on Facebook and try to run a credit offer with people that are somehow you're figuring out that they're into playing the lottery. But most of these other sites you're not going to be able to target that well. Okay, so what you want to do is search by composition index, and you can read right here. It says display smaller sites more targeted to your defined audience. And so what this is doing is it's sorting basically according to the same thing as like affinity. This is an index. So when a site has a composition index of 100, that's going to be a standard measure. And so whenever you see sites that are skewed way up like this, like 5,000, 10,000, or whatever, that means that, say for 15,000, okay, that's 150 times 100, and so that means that somebody visiting this site is 150 times more likely to visit that USA, or sorry, the combination of these sites, kind of the visitor that we defined up here. And so as you'd kind of expect, now you're seeing tons of lottery sites here, right? These are all lottery sites, and until we get here, diets in review, which is kind of weird. I want to say this, every now and then with Google's Ad Planner, I see some weird things that don't really seem to make sense to me, and I kind of just ignore it if I can't figure out a reason why that might be showing. I tend to just ignore the site, and I wouldn't include it in a media plan. So I don't really get why diets in review is here. It doesn't really make sense to me. I know what this site is. It's a site about diets, as you'd expect. And as you get further down here, you're going to see that these sites are not as related, and you're starting to get all sorts of different sites in here. So there's no hard and fast rule, but if I'm going to do this and I'm going to be trying to find related sites to sites that seem to already be working based on the AdBeat data or based on your own data, by the way, if you have your own conversion data, you can do the same thing. You can look at your placement reports, and just because Google may be showing you on only a few sites in some category, and they may be working really well, but you can't, for whatever reason, you're having a hard time getting Google to show you on more sites, you could come here and plug in those high converting sites and then get similar sites by composition index. Take that and go try to do direct site buys, or maybe try to do placement targeting with Google. So you can also use that data with your own conversion data. All right, so there's no hard and fast rule about what sort of composition index are you looking for. I basically will typically just go down and select sites until things start to look kind of weird and don't seem to really fit that well. So here I might kind of stop somewhere around 1900. Can everybody hear me okay? Somebody's Dave's saying he lost sound. Okay. All right, great. I'm going to keep going then. So in this case, here's kind of the other part of this tool. Well, let me get into a little more detail here. So this is going to tell you a little bit about how much traffic these sites have. It's going to tell you what sorts of ad specs they have. I don't know that this data is like super updated and accurate. I've basically found a lot of data that's not very accurate in here in the past. So I wouldn't necessarily take this to be totally true. But you can do something. You can do let's see here. So if you want to know, only which sites accept image ads or text ads, you can check these off, and it's going to filter all your results down below. So depending on how targeted you want to get, you can use some of these other filters. I'm typically not going to use those filters. I'll usually go with exactly like we have it here. And then what I'll typically do is pull this into Excel, and then I may sort by unique visitors, and then maybe not look at it like this site right here. I may not look at this. It looks pretty small. Smart luck. Okay, so there's all sorts of some fancy graphing stuff in here. I've never really found that to be very useful, so I wouldn't worry about it. But this is kind of the idea. This is the whole idea of the site here, is to create a media plan. So this is the way you would go about doing that. You can check off all the sites that you're interested in. All right, and then go add selected to a new media plan. I'm going to call that lottery sites, and it's going to add 15 placements to this media plan. All right, before I go on, I'm going to take a couple questions here. How come no data for daily impressions? I don't know. That's a good question, Dave. The data that they have is not always complete. I'm not 100% sure why that's not showing up for any of these. These are kind of related. The unique visitors, and if you read, there's a bunch of help that you can read that'll explain how they count unique visitors related to cookies and all this stuff. But this is kind of related to impressions. Visitors is basically, for our purposes, I would say it's just as good. And the reason why they have audience and country here, so this means that this site is going to have this many unique users for the audience that we've defined here, and then in the overall country, there's going to be this many unique users. So in this case, they should be pretty similar. Some of these don't look so similar, which is kind of strange. These would be totally different if you were looking at if we sort by, let's see, sort by reach again. These should be drastically different. So Facebook has 120,000 visitors that are related to our audience, but they have 130 million countrywide. So this is what I would expect. These are completely different, on the order of tens of millions versus a couple 100,000. Sorry about the phone here. It'll stop ringing in just a second. But let's see. With composition index, I would expect these numbers to be a little closer, but they're not as close. Sometimes they're very close here. 36K, 36K, but then some of these are quite different, and I'm not 100% sure why that is. But as you can see, none of them are as different as the, when you sorted by reach, and in the tens of millions versus a couple thousand. So all of this stuff, all of this is data that's estimated. It's none of these online tools, none of these analytics tools, none of Compete, Alexa, AdBeat, Google's Ad Planner, none of this stuff is like an exact science, really. There's a lot of problems with estimating data online, and so you can't really get too bogged down with exact numbers. It's best to kind of just use this stuff as a guide. So how did I add these again to the ad planner? You just check these off here and then just do add selected. I could, if I wanted to, and I had an existing media plan like lottery sites, I can add these into an existing media plan, or I can create a new media plan here. So it's probably gonna tell me I already have these sites. It didn't tell me, but there are sites were already there, so it didn't really do anything. Here's a new lotto site, so I can add that into my existing media plan by just checking that. Add selected lottery site. So there it said one placement added to media plan. And so now where is this media plan? That's what the other tab is going to be about. All right, so when I click over to media plan here, this is a little bit confusing sometimes, but this is where your media plan is going to be set up here. So I have some other media plans I created a while back. And you can create media plans, then archive them, and they won't show up here. I think like Google likes to do, they never really go away. So the one we have selected is the lottery sites, what we just created. And so now we're looking at this set of sites. You can export these to Excel, export to AdWords. I don't even think I've used this. Following placements not support. This is interesting. I don't even use this. I would just take this data and use it on my own, but you can play around with this and check it out. So I would typically just export these to a CSV Excel, and then I would take these and if you were trying to do a direct site buy, you just start finding the contact info for all these sites. So you would go to the site, look for advertising contact info. If you were trying to target on, say, Google, you would take these sites and plug them into the Google keyword tool and get keywords based on these sites. That's the way I would approach it. And at this point, if I was really if I was really thought that this was the right angle to go on this offer, I would also just go to Google. Because in this case, this lends itself really well to just a straight Google search. And in this case, and you have to always remember that sometimes you can just go to Google and get information that you need as well. And in this case, I would probably just go, USA lottery sites or something, right? Because I'm going to think, probably there's some listing of state lottery sites. U.S. lottery state guides. All right, so here's probably a bunch of listings of individual state lottery sites. So you can take all of these as well. And if you were trying to approach this with PPV, this would be a good thing to do for sure. Because a lot of these probably don't have advertising. All right, so definitely don't forget to use Google. I use Google quite a bit when I'm trying to expand out campaigns. I do searches, I try to find lists, whatever you can do to try to find more information around a certain topic. All right, so now you basically have a list of sites, and I'll show you. This is kind of cool because once you've created a media plan, one of the things you can do is look at the profile of that plan as a whole. So now you have more sites together and you can kind of see, this is basically summarizing the demographics of your media plan. So this can be kind of a good way to just make sure that if you have some demographic info already that you're thinking makes sense, then this can be kind of a good way to check against it. Sometimes your media plan is just going to be defined by a demographic from the beginning. I mean, you may have used that to layer into your audience selection. So in that case, it should come out right. But in this case, we didn't use any demographic info to create this plan. This is some stuff you need a double click for advertisers account. This would actually be, you could push this media plan in to actually do display advertising. All right, so that's mostly how I'm going to use this. If I started with some data like some of those publishers out of AdBeat, that's typically what I would do. Any questions on, and you could use Quantcast to do the same thing. They have or close to the same thing anyway. And like I said, I actually like the way Quantcast displays this stuff quite a bit better. And they're going to give you affinities of different sites over here on the side, kind of a summary. And then if you wanted to use Quantcast Ad Planner, you can do the same thing here. And so, let's see. Let me think. Now I'm a little bit confused. I don't normally use Quantcast. I use Google Ad Planner, but there should be a way to get the same sort of listing with an affinity. Huh. Well, maybe you can't get a listing the same way with Google as just by putting in a site and getting related sites. I thought you could. I actually always use Google Ad Planner to do that. Maybe that's why I do that. Let's see, because I know they give you a list of hold on, I'm having computer issues. They give you a list of sites by affinity here, but they may not, this may be actually part of their paid model, so they may just kind of give you only this much data here for free. And then in order to get the rest of the data, they're going to sell you the rest of that data, which I've definitely never paid for any data from Quantcast. I mean, they sell to basically big display advertisers. I don't know anybody that's ever bought data from Quantcast, but that is their model. They sell data. So anyway, you may just be limited to this. You may only be limited to what comes over here. Now, of course, you can always just plug in another site, right? So you can just come here. No, this is not a paid Quantcast account. So what I did was I just took one of these that had a high affinity for the USA Mega site, and I just plugged it in here, and now I can get another list of sites that have a high affinity that may be different than some of the sites that were there before. So you could just do this iteratively and get more and more sites. I'll have to check into this later, but I guess I was just wrong that you can't get a full list of sites. Quantcast changes things from time to time, so it may be that you used to be able to, but they changed it. So anyway, there's still a lot of good information in Quantcast, and like I said, I actually prefer the way that they display their demographic data that's in relation to the index, because it's much easier to tell what's going on. So any questions on that? I'm going to go to another example here. If not, Brandon's asking, can you go back to Affinity on Ad Planner? What insight would you take from sites listed less than 100? That's an interesting question. I mean, I guess you could say it's like the opposite of your audience, I guess, would be the way to look at it. So you would not want to advertise there, but you don't really want to try to advertise. Typically, if you're using this method, you don't want to advertise on sites with an affinity of less than a few hundred. I mean, you're looking for something that's really highly targeted to the sort of, this is really a psychographic sort of profiling method. So you're looking for a site that's highly targeted to that particular psychographic that you're looking for. And I should say, this doesn't mean that there aren't sites out there that may convert really well for an offer that have a low composition index for, say you find some site, say that these sites are converting well for credit. Okay, I don't know this for sure, but say that they are. There may be other sites out there that have a very low composition index related to these sites that still convert really well for that credit offer, because there may be other reasons why the site is converting well. Maybe it's CNN.com and the domain itself just has a very has a lot of trust and authority, and anytime you can borrow trust and authority from a domain, an offer is typically going to convert better. So there's kind of a lot of different layers of, sort of, I guess, influence or targeting that you can think of that are going on constantly. And so you have to be aware of that also. But this is kind of one way to hit a certain pocket of people that might be converting well for an offer. All right. I'm gonna take a look at that other offer, scholarships for moms. Wait. All right. So here on Quantcast, we have this offer. I picked this offer on purpose because I thought it would be a good example of targeting with demographics. That credit offer probably wasn't such a great example of targeting with demographics, but there are some offers that are going to lend themselves towards demographic targeting heavily. And I mean, an offer that has the word moms in it straight off the bat is going to be probably a pretty good bet. And so when I look here at the Quantcast data, there's some really clear differences between who's visiting this offer and who's part of the broader internet, right? So roughly 2.5 times more likely to be African American. 1.3 times more likely to be female, or said another way, I mean, twice as likely to visit this offer is going to be a female than a male, because the relative strength of these two numbers. I'm actually surprised that that's not more highly skewed to females. I don't really know what I get. Who knows why guys are ending up on that page. And then even with the age ranges, I mean, there's basically really heavy skews on almost every demographic category here. So highly skewed to the 13 to 17 range, which to me is kind of surprising. I would think it would be more the 18 to 34 range. Has kids, highly skewed to having kids. And so when I look at all this stuff, it all makes sense is one thing, right? I mean, I think you guys would agree that most of this stuff makes sense. I mean, the age range is lower, which is kind of what you'd expect. Females make sense. Has kids make sense. I mean, people with kids are typically, if they're in this age range and they have kids, they're going to be basically not in a good financial situation, most likely. So, you know, all this stuff sort of makes sense. 0 to 30K skewed towards the lower income range. All right. So in this case, this is really this is a really well-defined demographic. And so you could take this and you could try to do targeting based on this demographic. And here, you know, you're going to get some ideas already from Quantcast. Let's see. So this is interesting. Grants.gov, Course Advisor, eLearners. A lot of these incentive sites are showing up, which is kind of interesting. These are like coupon type incentive sites. And then, of course, a bunch of African American targeted sites. So I guess the way Quantcast is doing this is they kind of will lump together some of the more common categories that have high affinity and then display that information there. But what I would do is take this and then go back over to Google's Ad Planner. And I would use this information. So I'm going to refresh. All right, so I want to define an audience based on this really well-defined demographic. So I'm going to choose this low income range, these two age ranges, female, I didn't check the education. I mean, I guess it's no education or, yeah, no college. So these, you know, Google and Quantcast have some little bit different. So I would say, you know, these two, less than high school diploma, high school. And so I'm trying to as closely match what that Quantcast demographic data looked like here. So all these tags now come up and all the data below is related to these tags. Then I'm going to, let's see. I thought there was a way to target by ethnicity here as well. So here's what I'm going to do. I thought there was a way to target just by ethnicity, but I'm going to go in here to category and choose this. It looks like that's not a good way to do it. Basically, that only selected a few sites, so that's not going to work. Hmm. All right, well, let's take a look at this first of all. By composition index. So I would be worried that this isn't really what I'm looking for. Let me try Quantcast again. Okay, so here I'm going to pick this lower age range again. Lower income, African American, no college, has children. All right, so here Quantcast is telling you all the stuff that you have checked up here. And then they're going to give you a listing by composition index, which is the same thing that Google does. Then I just sorted by the index. So this is what I would use. Sorry, I didn't go through this example on my own fully, but I actually thought that there was a way to get the targeting I needed out of Ad Planner, but it seems like in this case I'm not really getting what I think I would be looking for. These sites without the African American targeting are probably going to be probably not going to be the best bet, because that was actually the most highly skewed part of the demographic. So this looks like probably a good bet. A lot of different sites about music, urban lyrics, all this kind of stuff. This to me looks like this is where I would start and potentially try to kind of target. If it was on Google content, I would try to target, these sites or keywords related to these sites, or try to go do direct site buys. Now, this should work though. Let me see. Well, let's see. Urban Chat, urbanlyrics.com, bet.com. Let me do that. So I should be able to come in here and do All right, I guess this is the best way to do this. So I've left the other targeting, and now I've layered on this this sites also visited targeting. But now I'm not getting anything, so let me see. Specify an audience too small, or display the site without data. Sometimes you have to make sure you haven't accidentally checked something that is causing you to not get results. So let's see what happens if I eliminate all of this except for the sites. Okay, so that's kind of weird. It's like you basically you over constrain the algorithm, whatever they're using to kind of come up with these recommendations. You're basically going to break it, and they can't give you any recommendations. So there were just too many targeting options there. So what I'm going to do is try to layer in some of that back again, particularly like maybe the female. Maybe the household income. Let's try that. All right. So that's kind of a long roundabout way to get at some data here, but this is sometimes, I mean, this is really just the way that I would do things. Just kind of go back and forth and look at the data and try to get at what I'm really trying to target. So here you have a list of sites from Quantcast. You could also, like I just did, I just took some with the high composition index out of Quantcast, went back to Google Ad Planner, and then got a bigger list from Google Ad Planner that's going to have a high composition index related to those sites as well. So that's how I would approach looking at that offer, and I'm going to show you something kind of interesting here in AdBeat. Oh, I guess I already had this open. Sorry. So I happen to know this because I saw it the other day. But this offer is actually running currently on. Let me see. It's running on Google Content right now. Looks like they had some trouble. It got knocked down, and now it's back again on Google Content. And so let's see what's going on with the publishers. Actually, wait, are they doing? It's only text ads for now. Here's a list of publishers. So interesting. Asian Americans, blackexcel.org. I don't know what this is. All right, so this is probably a great site to be advertising on for this offer. I just know based on the name of the site and based on all that demographic research that we just did, this is probably a great site to target. It's showing up as one of the top sites in AdBeat as well for this advertiser. But there's not that many kind of related sites here on Google Content Network. So, I mean, there may be an opportunity here to use some of that demographic targeting that we just did and come up with keywords that are related to, also kind of along the lines of this site, and try to get, if you were going to push this offer, try to get traffic more along the lines of sites like this than some of these college scholarship sites, right? These, you know, kind of more standard education student sites or whatever. So that's kind of how I would look at that. But then I want to show you something else, because I'd also noticed this. So like I've recommended to you guys, you know, you should be browsing the top advertisers on all of these ad networks and just seeing what's going on. And I was looking at Tribal Fusion, and I saw this site right here, scholarships-for-mom. So this has been running for at least 30 days. Looks like it started up maybe 6 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, something like that. But it's been running steady, mostly only on Tribal Fusion. Maybe they tried to get it going on Google and Google slapped it or something. Who knows? Let's see. Yeah, it's hard to say whether this just got slapped or whether they gave up or whatever. But it's running on Tribal Fusion. And let's take a look. All right, so this guy is using all banner ads on Tribal Fusion, and it appears that he's smart enough to have done his own demographic research, and is basically using photos of African American women with kids in every single banner ad, which is kind of crazy to see. I've never actually seen somebody target an offer quite like this. But this is what this guy's doing on Tribal Fusion. It's not even that easy to get the targeting that you need in terms of showing up on the right sites. But you know, he's basically using banners that speak to this audience so well that he's probably making this work, even with the kind of limited targeting that he's probably got available on Tribal Fusion. So here's the site. Well, Smart Lyrics looks like it may kind of be along the lines of hip-hop early. So there may be some sites in here that look like they're related, but I mean, overall, I don't think the targeting on this campaign in terms of what publishers he's showing up on is probably all that great, just by looking at this. But there are a few sites that kind of show up here that look like they may be good. So anyway, so if you could take, you know, you come in here and you see what this guy's doing with the ad beat data here, and you see which banners are working, and you take this sort of concept and then you take some of the media planning that you do in Quantcast and DoubleClick, you could take that data and potentially do really well with it, either by trying to contact sites directly, or by figuring out a way to get something running on Google, or by, you know, potentially just running on one of these more less untargeted less targeted networks. Let me see here, question. Somebody's asking why don't I mention that the advertiser is doing the advertising on Google for Scholarship for Moms? I actually don't know who's doing the advertising on Google. I didn't look at it. I mean, this could potentially be the advertiser as well. I don't know. I honestly don't know, Gary. That may be the case or it may not be the case. But I mean, it kind of doesn't matter. I mean, they're basically, I'm just showing you how to find opportunities for targeting and how to kind of use all of these systems together and kind of, you know, make sense of the data in different systems and try to pair it together to do something with it. If you pay by impression on the content network, is there a way to determine if your ad placement will be above the fold? No, there's not. I mean, some people just don't even have ad placements above the fold. Some sites, I mean, so there's just no possible way to do that. When you buy directly from a site, that's one of the things you can specify is, you know, you want above the fold impressions only. So you're typically going to pay more for that, but that's one of the things you can specify. All right, so that's pretty much what I have to cover today. I'll answer questions if you guys have questions about any of that stuff or hopefully related stuff, but I may answer a few questions that aren't really related if you have them. Have I ever run ads on DoubleClick? I've run ads through the Google Exchange through some sort of third party. There's a lot of different ways to get onto the Google Exchange through different third party. There's lately in the last year or two, there's been all these, all of this big push for all these demand side platforms and all of these real-time bidding platforms, and there's like all these different ways you can get ads showing on some of these networks through like a third party. So I don't have like an account with I talked to DoubleClick. I don't even know what honestly right now I don't even know what the right name is for it. I think it's the Google Exchange. They may be calling it something different, but you know, DoubleClick's basically merged with Google. I talked to them a couple years ago at AdTech, and to get basically to buy directly from the exchange, I think they wanted you to be spending a couple $100,000 a month. So it's not really to buy directly through the exchange. It's not, at least when I talked to them, it's not really something that's possible for most people, but there's other ways to kind of get your ads on there. And actually it's pretty easy to tell. Let me show you something here. I think I may have mentioned this somewhere in the forum, but if you go to DoubleClick and you just look at the top advertisers on DoubleClick, what you'll see is you'll see a lot of the domains that are going to be you know, some of these other ad networks or some of these other platforms that allow you to place ads through the DoubleClick exchange. So many of these top domains are just another ad network. So let's see. I mean, AOL.com, ATD, MT, Serving-Sys, Context Web, all these, FastClick.net, Zito. These are all not exactly advertisers. They're other ad networks that are serving through the DoubleClick network. So there's ways to get to sort of get access to that inventory through these other methods. Oh, Brandon is saying you can exclude below the fold on Google. It's an exclusion category for display campaign. If that's right, I actually wasn't aware of that, so maybe that's correct. So I don't know. Brandon, where is that in the account? Do you know exactly? And Gary, Gary's asking, how about tomorrow we create ad groups for these offers based on what you showed today? We can do that. I can show you how I would create ad groups. I'll show you kind of how you can do it manually, and then I'll talk about some of the ways to automate it, because that's really it's important to find a way to automate it. So for excluding below the fold, it's campaign level exclusion on the networks tab. All right, any other questions? Do I buy ad space on Content Network on impression or by pay-per-click? I've played around with impression bids, but I've never really made them work. So I've always done on a CPC basis, really, on anything that's really worked well for me. But I buy ad space all the time on an impression basis through other channels. All right, anything else? Can I show you how to use keyword Rockstar to automate? At some point, yes. I may actually just have John demonstrate it. So which channels, Dave? I mean, any of the display networks or direct site buys are often going to be CPM-based buys. So any of that stuff. I mean, you can also do direct site buys with smaller sites that won't be CPM-based, but when you start doing a buy on a larger site, it's typically going to be CPM-based. It's not always. There's no rule. Sometimes you can get a CPC deal. Sometimes you can even do a CPA deal where essentially you're guaranteed profit, but it's, you know, those are hard to come by. I've actually never done a deal like that, but I have friends that have worked out deals with sites where it's a CPA deal where essentially they're guaranteed profit. Next training session is tomorrow, 6 p.m. Pacific. All right. I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. We're a little bit over an hour already. No, sessions are not every Saturday and Sunday. I just happen to have sessions on the weekend this time. Normally I'm trying to hit sometime during the week, weeknights. But I had LeadsCon this past week, and I was completely slammed with work all week long and couldn't get to anything. So I wanted to get some training done on the weekend. And yeah, we're recording everything. Yeah, I know. I figured some people would like the weekends. I've had some people say they don't like the weekend idea, but that's why I wasn't hesitant to do a couple on the weekend, because I know some people would probably prefer it. We have people in all sorts of countries and everywhere, you know, that are members, so it's really impossible to get everybody in line on a time, so there's always going to be a compromise. So I'll probably try to split it up every now and then. Maybe I'll have some in the morning on the weekdays as well, just different times to allow different people to get access. If you have questions, though, you can always just post them on the blog after I post the session, and I'll answer them there if you watch the recording. All right, let's wrap up. Thanks, everybody, for attending and for all the questions.